Make sure we got your title right.
Tom Beal, you showed up. Thank you.
Tom, you sure that's for you or for me?
Huh?
I said, I think I probably know Tom Beal longer than you have.
Oh, yeah, you have. Yeah, but I love Tom Beal. I only like you.
Perfect. All right, well, got a last little minute here before we get started, Tom, and then get into the intro. All right. All right, Tom. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second season of the ATARC Cloud and Coffee, the place for discussions on all things modernization and transformation. My name is Chris Oglesby with Morphworks, and my co-host, unfortunately, Terry Lee, is out sick today, which seems to be the the running challenge of the new year. Before the introductions, this platform is hosted under the ATARC Cloud and Infrastructure pillar with the goal of bringing lessons learned and ideas to the ATARC community. Our focus will be a conversation about our guests' experiences, past and present, executing modernization and transformation efforts. At the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. Feel free to enter in questions in the chat. During the chat, we will work in questions into our discussion. So now let's move on to introductions. Today, our guest is a repeat from about the same time last year. Tom Santucci, with the Director of IT Modernization within the Office of Government-Wide Policy at GSA. Tom, would you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about your background?
Sure. I started when we were reinventing government in 1997. I got a job FDA. It was the first year I had moved to Maryland from South Florida. I spent 15 years in Fort Lauderdale growing up, and had wife and kids, and we wanted to move further north, so we moved to back home where I came from and grew up. And then I had 9 W-2s one year because I was working 2 jobs trying to keep the family afloat, and I just kept changing jobs. I applied for 5 jobs, and I ultimately got all 5, the last one being FDA. And as a computer programmer, I love programming. I'm an introvert. I like working all-nighters and just creating something from scratch. It's still something I love to do, but I don't do it anymore.
You don't do the all-nighters anymore?
Well, for different reasons, but not coding. So then I got involved in a recall project, reinventing recalls, where me and this program manager, my mentor at FDA, we literally changed the way FDA did recalls. I wrote the application, he did the business side, and I worked with Center Devices to create this great little program for to automate classifying recalls as they came in. They used to have 14 doctors show up on every recall that came in, and they'd spend hours trying to classify a recall, either class 1, 2, or 3, depending on the severity of it. And we used AI exactly. We inputted 2,000 recalls into a database. So if a recall coordinator in the field was able to find a comparable, they could just simply use that one and reference that recall number. And that saved 7 FTEs at the time over the course of the year. And then we ultimately I wrote an application for them to actually enter the recall into a database rather than a 3-part carbon copy and mail it in and do all the paper processes. And it later became a standard for the other centers to follow to enter, because the recall coordinators liked it so much. It was all voluntary use. It was no mandatory. They just much preferred entering it into a web-based program. And that was in '98. That was the first agency-wide web interface there was. Then I eventually got on to a inspection program where we changed the way we did inspections. The investigators, FDA investigators, got laptops, but they had no reason to use it, and half of them were old enough that they didn't know how to use it. So we created this application for them to actually do the inspection on a laptop. There were security concerns because at the time it was Windows 98 was the norm back then, and there was no security, even a login. So we, as an ancillary benefit, we had to develop a PKI, and I ran that part of it and deployed it to 1,600 investigators, and we used it for authenticating to Windows 98 operating system. We encrypted the documents folder automatically, and we also were using Proofpoint because these investigators were taking the laptops into hostile environments, and one vendor would love to see what was coming out of what was the inspection from the last report.
So you were using edge technology even before before your current role of trying to modernize and transform things.
So and that eventually just took off. 9/11 came. FDA hired, I don't know, 700 investigators overnight because of all the food safety concerns, and all of them were grade 5 college educated professionals that knew computers. They just came out of that mold, and they instantly gravitated to it and were productive nearly day one because they were able to actually assign a CFR reference, Code of Federal Regulations number to everything they identified, rather than the open format they had before, where investigators could basically write anything they felt like, even if it didn't reference the CFR.
Is that about the time you transitioned then to DOJ?
Yeah, because of my work in the, I only built a tier 2 PKI at the time because I had no idea what I was doing. I was reading the manual as I was deploying certificates, but it was labeled a tier 2. We eventually decided, I think FDA as a whole decided to do a build out of tier 4 PKI, and I did that. And once I did, DOJ was building their own PKI, so I moved over there, and it was eventually consumed by GSA as a federal-wide program. So that DOJ abandoned their efforts, and I essentially moved into the bowels of a data center for the next 13 years, doing everything from quality assurance to reporting, ITSM suites, and various other things. And then my last 3 years or 2 years was working on the data center consolidation effort for DOJ, and DOJ was so successful in closing, I think it's 100 data centers now. If not, it's due this year. The 100 is about to hit this year. GSA caught wind of it and asked me if I wanted to move over there and run the data center optimization initiative and Cloud Smart, which has really been, I mean, I've been 20 years in the making in this job. It's really just, I am not working any day of the week. I'm sort of like John Madden. I'm loving what I'm doing. And we're doing good stuff, and we're able to talk to so many agencies about all of the great work they're doing and be a sounding board for that.
So you were a guest around this time last year, so about the beginning of when we started the Cloud and Coffee. As we head into 2022, what are the top priorities for you for the IT modernization community?
Well, we did the IPv6 summit last year, and I've been itching to do another public summit. The IPv6 summit, we had 1,000 people attend. We had all of the industry leaders coupled with agencies on how well they were able to implement IPv6 and the reasons for it, and the natural progression of the internet, because they're literally running out of IP space in IPv4. And as I was listening to some of the webinars, I was listening to a lot of DOE webinars, and I was thinking about how do I equate sustainability with data centers? And I thought, there's the topic. So we're developing an event in March, hopefully, the Data Center Cloud Sustainability Summit. And because we've seen so many, we've been really watching what the administration's doing in the recent executive order that came out on climate change. And I thought this would be a great way of showing we want to continue to close data centers, but we want to show some progress with all of the work that the agencies are doing to moving to the cloud or commercial data centers, and quantify that in terms of reducing greenhouse gases and carbon footprint. So I want to bring.
Go ahead.
No. So we want to celebrate IT modernization, but as you're doing your IT modernization and using these commercial services, by virtue of simply doing that from a business standpoint, you are reducing greenhouse gases, and we should be tracking that and celebrating that.
So there are some data centers that the government has today that are, I would say, pretty green from that standpoint. Would those be? Is there a potential intent of more cross-agency potentially utilization for those that are celebrated? I mean, is there as part of the DCOI, is that something that could be?
Yes. Ultimately, data centers are critical infrastructure, federal government included. We need data centers in the federal government, and we need them to be fully utilized because they only have a 30-year shelf life. We don't want them to be underutilized for the 25 years that they're in existence. So we want to we'd like them to maximize their use while they're still fresh and new. Social Security and FBI have great data centers. They are fantastic, and they do shared USDA as well, and they do allow other agencies in. And the service is second to none. I'm sorry, Social Security doesn't allow other agencies in, but USDA and FBI do, especially for the intel community. Yeah, but we need more of those, right? We need to identify which ones are really top of the line, which we should be promoting and creating a shared marketplace. That was one of the things that came out of the 2018 Data Center Optimization Initiative, is to create a marketplace, but it really never took off. But there's several reasons for that. Agencies are prone to management changes, and it could be at the secretary level or at the local level, and things change, and that's frustrating for other agencies that want to do business with another agency. It could be a stroke of a pen that suddenly your rates are been increased, and there's no arbitration board to change that or anything. So they get if their philosophy changes on that, it's difficult for agencies to engage with. So they much prefer to go to a commercial data center where there's market-based incentives to keep the costs low.
So we got a question. I'm not sure I fully understand the full question from an anonymous attendee, but I do like, as you look at the sustainability factor and the FITARA scorecard, it talks in, can you talk about the relationship between GSA and OMB, and how does that relate to the work with congressional tied to FITARA and DCOI? So I'm actually expand on what you're currently talking about, because talking about data centers, consolidation of data centers obviously there is a measure of savings, right? That power and utilization, and there are some scores, but the relationship that your office has with OMB and that tie to FITARA and DCOI.
So yeah, this is the relationship between GSA and OMB is we're managing partners for data center optimization initiative, Cloud Smart, and IPv6. We work collaboratively with OMB. I meet with them on a regular basis. It used to be weekly, but things have settled down with DCOI that we went to biweekly. And we're sort of their support arm for DCOI. We work with the agencies directly on DCOI matters. We do the collection of the DCOI data. We make sure we did something this quarter that we should have been doing all along, is really doing a preliminary grade scorecard, so we knew what agencies were going to get before it came out on the FITARA scorecard. I can celebrate that we're going to have 24 of the 24 agencies get an A this year, or this quarter, or this year actually, because this is the final quarter, our final scorecard for this year, coming out here soon. So yeah, we are, and then if we've developed draft policies for the next DCOI and shared them with OMB on some of the ideas that we have.
So can you walk through the DCOI aspect and again, some of the things that you've done and some of the things that you're seeing as a priority this year, really tied to Cloud Smart, right? The data center consolidation is one aspect of Cloud Smart. The green aspect of data centers is a big piece. What are the other priorities that that folks should be thinking about?
Well, Cloud First was really a good first start, but people really reacted to that without much thought. They just quickly moved to the cloud and didn't really understand the interrelationships with other applications that they'd be talking to. So what people found was their egress charges on the cloud were just insurmountable, and they overestimated their cloud use or CPU usage on the EC2s, and the cost was just ballooning their budget. They eventually moved back. We've always taken the approach. One of the things out of the Cloud Smart policy was application rationalization, which is another priority for us, and really have agencies take a systematic approach to their full portfolio and work with their business owners to decide, how many of these widgets do we actually need in our inventory to be successful. It goes back to, I always use the case I had an ITSM suite. I was paying $150,000 in licenses, getting, I needed $2 or $3 million in labor to support that application, because you had to run the servers, you had to run the application, the storage, and the database. It was, and that same application could have been 10 times bigger at the same cost. So reusing the same application over and over again. Application sort of drives at that. It's an IT modernization. It's re-empowering the enterprise architect to really make strategic decisions on whether you should be refreshing or retiring some of these applications, folding them into an enterprise-wide service, whether it be at the office level, department, or agency or department level.
So the application rationalization is a big priority. Obviously, the Cloud Smart has a playbook that is engaged. Obviously, we've worked with you quite a bit, both at the department and with your GSA team. When folks are thinking about it, it is something that is an interesting take, right? Because there are tools that are pitched as discovery tools that'll take care of this for you. But I mean, what's your thoughts on kind of the start? Because the start is, I think, it is a hard part for folks.
Well, it's a long process and it's not easy. Right now, most agencies do a spreadsheet, and it's a moment in time inventory of what but it doesn't, the application rationalization is more involved in that, and it is time consuming, but the benefits are enormous when it comes to looking at your entire IT portfolio. You really want to flesh out the cost. Steve Nauman always likes to say the shop fees. Application owners don't actually incur some of these costs, like the actual data center or the pipes, the network to run on, or even the TIC. They don't see those costs, and they need to have costs associated with them to see the total cost of ownership for these things. So if you did want to move, you could do an assessment at some point and see if on-prem or hybrid or cloud is a better option, or commercial data center. You need a complete picture of it, because it's not just license costs and labor. There's a lot of things that go into it, and there's only so much IT talent out there.
Yeah, and so I guess the key there, not a moment in time, right? So it's not shelfware. It is something that
it's a continuous it's configuration management, if you want to think of it that way. That was born out of the 60s with the mainframers. They did a really good job at that. They invented change management. It's still in play today. It's really fundamental stuff.
And so, but with the data, right, there, agencies would be able to make those decisions. It gives them, not taking the moment in time, making it and allowing it to evolve, gives it kind of a real-time ability that should, with that TCO, give them an understanding of decisions to be made from an infrastructure, from an hosting, from a support standpoint. Are there other areas that you all are pushing, or agencies that you guys are? Oh, did we lose you?
No.
Okay.
Still here.
Your camera went out.
Oh, sorry.
The agencies that are seeing value from this.
Yeah, we just had a couple. One agency go in front of our community practice. I didn't get permission to use their names, so I'm not going to. but he's on the call today. And they are showing tremendous benefit. They are able to see their legacy components of their application and are able to identify those. So when they do have quarterly meetings with their business owners, they could say, what are you doing to correct the situation? We need to get off this platform and quantify that in terms of for that application or that business unit. And then eventually you're able to baseline it and see what it looks like next year. And they were able to reduce it by 75% of their legacy components or out of date components. And they're able to track it at that level. And then they're able to flesh out the cost and show true ownership, cost of ownership for the business owners. So they can really make key decisions on moving to a shared platform or cloud or otherwise.
Or even, I assume, even being able to utilize, from a contract rationalization, utilize a spend into one platform that maybe has, expanded into another domain that might be sunsetting, right? I mean, so you're able to get that perspective just because you have the knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, the agency that I was referring to had a lot of .NET, and they needed to move to a more advanced platform, and they were identified all the applications that were running on the .NET. So they talked to them individually or as a group, and we're able to make a TMF request to move that all onto a newer platform.
Excellent. So as you look at application rationalization, you made comment of one of the challenges is there is an overabundance, I guess, or IT folks are tough to find, and it gets harder as as new technologies come out. I think one of the priorities you shared for this year with me on our prep call is training. Would you like to talk a little bit about what you guys are looking at from a training standpoint?
Yeah, Fred Beisel is on as well, and we were really happy to get him over. It's too bad Terry couldn't be here because Fred used to work at NIWC, where Terry works. We partnered up with NIWC, which is their component of Navy, Department of Navy, and we were able to provide our community of practice training early on when COVID hit. We were planning to do a in-person training before COVID hit, and we were going to have 25 people do an AWS training, and it would have cost $15,000. And we were USDA had actually helped fund that project, but then COVID hit, and then everything just kind of went up into the air. Fred had reached out to me and he says, "Hey, why don't we try a virtual training class?" And I said, "Oh, I'm all for it." So it was, I think, March or April, I think, Fred, where we did our first virtual training. We did AWS Foundation. We had 200 people the first class. We had 200 people the second. And we just, there are so many people that want training out there that it's incredible. And agencies are tight on budgets with particularly training. Some managers feel like they don't want to train their employees. And the old adage is, if you don't train them, they'll leave. But then the new adage is in the federal government, if you don't train them, what are you going to do with them? Because, technology is evolving. We're getting further and further away from our actual physical devices. You need to manage these things remotely. You don't need to hit the power button in today's world. There's no reason you can't be hundreds of miles away from your data centers to operate them and manage them. So you need to keep your staff trained. The most successful people, I talked to Mike Cassidy this morning. He says the reason I'm able to be successful and not have turnover and have incredible uptimes in service delivery is because I keep my people trained, and it engages the employee. And I swear to you, speaking on a federal employee standpoint, the only thing you want to be is engaged in your employment. All else doesn't matter. I'll work 14 hours a day if I'm engaged, because it beats the alternative. You don't want to sit around staring at the wall. Nobody wants to do that at a human level. So find things that for your employees to do that they're good at, and train the hell out of them.
Yeah, one of the things Mike Cassidy was a guest, and one of the things that he talked about as a lesson learned is he's masterful at working within his network to see if what people have from a training standpoint, that they might have extra seats, right? And I think that's one of the lessons learned that he's passed on, that understanding what your peers are doing in a different component, or even a different agency, if it's a seat that's unused, being able to utilize that. So is that something that as you guys look at making sure that it gets rolled out? I know you've got some huge successes that you've had with different training. Is that something that you guys are able to support agencies to do?
Well, yeah, I didn't tell you the other end of that story. NIWC had some local management changes, and they decided not to cater to the community of practice. They felt like they were spending too much time on the our community of practice than the DoD employees. It was a fair statement. So we decided to bring Fred over, and we stole him from NIWC. And Fred has single-handedly developed our training program federal-wide. We've had 154 agencies attend one or more of our trainings, and I'm really proud of the 90 small agencies that have attended one or more trainings. It's really incredible. We've had 1,700 unique students attend one or more of our trainings this year, or I should say 2021. And Fred's always developing new curriculum for something. We've actually been talking to him about maybe providing a security light training, so we can intertwine technology, policy, and strategy along with security training that employees have to take every year.
So are you guys, and Fred, Tom, I don't know if there's a way for folks to be able to find out, and Fred, if you want to pop it in the chat for everybody. But so as you guys are looking at this, are you working with, we've had Robin Reese on here and spent a lot of time around helping folks develop. Ryan Hillard was on before the end of the year, and that we actually got into a conversation of helping the almost kind of the two sides, bring the two sides together, helping the leadership have enough technical knowledge to understand what the engineers and the engineering teams are saying, but help the engineering teams have enough business knowledge to kind of bring that conversation together. Not a full overlap, but at least start to bring some connectivity. So as you guys are looking at it, are you looking at the different needs, or is it more focused on?
No. Fred is one trainer. He can do as much as he can possibly do. He does a lot of the AWS, Cisco, and others. We would love to bring on more trainers to do other things, particularly with maybe VMware or Red Hat. CISSP would be a big one. That was the last class we did with NIWC. We had 2 training sessions in September And we had 200 people attend each of the 2 sessions, and that was September 2020. I am, we're just doing a broad brush. There's no strategic thinking in terms of what the agencies need or want. This is all voluntary on a per user basis. And our audience is our community of practice.
So, and then let me ask, so it is a little bit more technology focused. Thank you, Fred. So for those that are looking, Fred's saying it's cloud, AWS, Azure, Google. So he's hitting hitting kind of the main 3. So Fred's posting out in the chat right now. So as you guys are looking at this, you're looking more at the technology, I guess. Will there be training? How does the training work from the standpoint of helping folks with Cloud Smart? Again, you know, to your point on the apparatus side, is there training that people can get on just how to get started?
Yeah. You know, Steve Nauman is the author of that, and Fred did put together a training class on that, on various topics, and that was quite successful. We're going to continue to do that.
And so that's something they can find on your website.
Yeah, we share it with the community of practice on what our training sessions are for the year.
Okay.
Hey, if you want to bring Fred on, I think he's got a lot to say about some of the things we're going to be doing this year.
That would be. It sounds like a good good future guest, Fred. So expect an invite.
He did an ATARC a couple months ago. He was fantastic.
Absolutely.
We're really proud of Fred.
So actually, Fred tied in on the IPv6. You talked about the IPv6 webinar that you did. What are you guys? I mean, that's, you know, in the government, it's had its fits and starts. So what are you seeing with IPv6 kind of going forward?
Agencies. Well, the working group off the community of practice has developed a good working relationship. Ron Butcher used to lead the IPv6 task force. He just left the government, sadly. And they get about 150 people on a call to talk about some of the agency successes. And one of the things that really stands out is the DoD rep, Baran Burzmo. I'm mispronouncing it. I apologize. He had said, you know, in IPv6, you just need to break it and then find a way to fix it using IPv6. It's really a greenfield. There is some training available to you. We provide some incidental training or introductory training to IPv6, but there's other cottage industries out there that do IPv6 training that are phenomenal, but it takes weeks to get fully trained up on IPv6. It's not an easy fix, and quite frankly, people are afraid to move to move away from IPv4 because they know it so well. They know it like the back of their hand. And but once the products start becoming available in IPv6, particularly with the zero trust vendors, I think that'll start to turn around because IPv6 just simply has better security controls. And right now we're running in dual mode, and that's not necessarily good for anybody because nobody's doing a really good job at IPv4 monitoring. How do you think we're doing on IPv6 monitoring as well? So we really need to close that gap and finish it off. We got 3 years to do it according to the OMB memo.
Gotcha. And so you guys have a working group that is, I guess, made up of a number of agencies that and if they want to get involved, again, check out your website and your community of practice.
Yeah, that's again led by O&B, and we're the managing partner for that. It's run by Leah Ellis on my team, and it's really a close-knit group that's continuing to grow. I think it used to be, the same 30 people would be talking about this for the last 15 years. And what I found when I got involved with IPv6, I was reading all of these articles and listening to the videos conferences that they had, and it's all still relevant today. It is amazing. The stuff that was developed 10 years ago can be implemented or used today. It hasn't changed a bit. There's really some grandfathers of IPv6 that should be commended for all of the stuff they developed over the years. But now with the memo coming out, it really took hold and got people's attention.
So I guess the future of Cloud Smart, will there be additional versions of Cloud Smart or just evolutions of the pieces within, or how does that continue?
I think there's a consensus that it needs to be updated. I think it worked for that. I don't know what the next version is going to look like. We haven't actually been tasked with developing it, but we're going to probably work on that.
Okay.
This year. And, DCOI memo is expiring at the end of September 2022. So we're going to have to start developing and helping O&B develop that on the next version of that. The legislation and the O&B memo expire in September.
Gotcha. And some of that could see more of the sustainability, I guess, as
No, that's actually something new. That's an angle that's just came to light in the last couple of months, but I can expect with the executive memo, and data centers are huge consumers of electricity, 10 to 100 times more than an office building. I think we ought to be starting there in terms of metrics of really measuring how efficient we are running these data centers, just from the data center's perspective. And here's some of the complexities of this, because we have anywhere from 2 to 10,000 data centers still operating in the office buildings. And those things are not the most efficient means of delivering IT services. I've been in many data centers with many agencies, and it's pretty embarrassing on how they're doing cooling with floor units, similar to what my wife has in our bedroom. It's not very efficient, to say the least.
Yeah. So I guess as agencies are looking at their options, right? I mean, you talked about the cloud being one, commercial data centers being one, potential of other government entities. So are there, with the webinar that's coming out, is the hope to give them some guidance on here's some things to look at as you're looking at the data centers from the green perspective?
Yeah, we're matching up vendors with agencies to talk about their IT modernization journey in using commercial services, and the benefits they've been able to come from it. And then we want the industry to talk about some of the things they've been just developing over the years on their sustainability reports. That's really what drove all of this. And I don't mind giving Tom Beal a little credit. I went on the Equinix's website, and they had a sustainability report, and it was incredible the things they've been working on. So I reached out to NBTC and expanded that scope, got all of their members, went to data center consolidation group and got their members, and everybody's been industry's been completely excited about talking about their progress in this area. And this will be a nice platform then for them to share that. So it's twofold. Just by simply doing IT modernization and using commercial services, we're reducing our federal footprint.
And then obviously, if you use some of the other pieces, the application rationalization, looking at some of the other aspects of Cloud Smart, you actually take it to another level.
Yeah, you know, Steve Nauman built the application rationalization playbook on when he did the 2 big migrations for Social Security, and those were enormous. It was a $500 million project, and they need to do a systematic review of all of their applications. And that's how that playbook was developed, was in real time, in real use. This wasn't theoretical. It's what he used to do those 2 big migrations that he was the PM on. You know, before you do any of the migrations, you really should get a hold of your IT portfolio to see what the hell you're moving and why you're moving it. You know, it may be cost, service delivery, or resiliency, but you know, you really should know what your big benefits are. And it may not be cost reduction. It may be you want better service delivery, so it's going to cost you more. But you should know that going into it. COVID's really called out some of these office building data centers because their paradigm was upside down with all of their users remote, and they weren't able to completely function as they normally would. Cloud gives you that option of having your total bandwidth from your, you know, your cable provider. I'm getting better bandwidth at my cottage in Deep Creek than I am in Pittsburgh. I get 200 megs at my cottage. It's getting more and more available and cheaper.
So how does what's the best way for an agency that may not be engaged with your office? What's the best way for them to get engaged with you guys?
I'll post the email address, but contact me directly or contact our group email, DCOI@gsa.gov, and we'll get somebody engaged with you on some of the strategies you could use. One thing I was happy to see, I saw an RFI from the House of Representatives with application rationalization. So it's actually getting more and more noticed now. And one thing about the energy, we're going to have hopefully DoD there. In the last NDAA, they actually had some metrics they needed to hit for DoD, and so hopefully they're going to be able to share some of the stories that they're going to have to realize over the next 12 to 24 months.
So we've got the executive order. Do you think then that I guess the mandates will potentially follow, as we've seen with some of the data center, some of the IT modernization? I'd probably have more as we develop the metrics.
I think it's natural that you'll see the metrics. You know, until you get to the red, yellow, green, agencies don't necessarily give it a priority as they should. So, I mean, that was the great thing about the FITARA scorecard. You know, when you got a green, it was great, and it sort of diverted attention away from your agency. But I knew directly how hard it was for agencies to close these data centers. It was incredibly hard. It's not easy. It takes all-nighters. It takes a lot of risk. People working through the issues that they ultimately have. I'm really just incredibly proud of all of the agencies that closed data centers. And there's, I don't know how many data centers we've closed, but Just the few that I did with DOJ was remarkable.
A few, you did more than a few.
I did a few, and a big shout out to FBI data centers, because without their support, none of that would have been possible. I mean, these guys just did whatever it needed to be done to help that migration close the Rockville data center, which was a 100,000 square foot data center in Rockville, Maryland.
So as we kind of come to the end here, I mean, having worked with you at DOJ and some of the efforts you took from the data center consolidation to starting up the application rationalization project to the cloud work there, that again to the hard part, there is a I guess a planning that has to go into starting all of these efforts, right? There's executive decisions that have to be made. There's budgets that have to be put together. What would you recommend, for folks that do have to have that first start, right? Because it's not that everybody is, number one, understanding of application rationalization, understanding of IT modernization initiatives. How would you recommend that here in the last 10 minutes that we got, that that people kind of get started?
So take the application rationalization playbook and use it and evaluate what you need to do to collect information. It may be that you need to add a column to identify the security boundary that application rests in. It may be identifying other things based on that agency's need. But start somewhere, and then you just start evolving it. And it's on a spreadsheet today, but you'll quickly move off a spreadsheet into a SQL database of some sort. And don't worry too much about the technology up front. Worry about collecting the data, and how to automate that will naturally come. These monitoring tools, they could collect all the information you want, and most of it is garbage. It's hard to decipher what is the gold nugget of data from the monitoring tools. But maybe that's a good source to start with, and then you just start filtering all of that data out. CSAM, if you have CSAM, that might be a good place to start as well. But CSAM only does the security boundaries, not necessarily application level, much less the component level of the applications. But so find out what tools you have, look at it from a business standpoint of what data you want, and start there and let it evolve. Don't try and make the perfect, do the activities, and then you start reassessing the agile method, right? And making the data better and better. Because eventually it's gonna create a creative spark in somebody to say, oh, I'd like to have this information if you could. And then you start to develop that. And maybe you have to work a little, do 3 steps forward, 1 step back to collect that information. But you're continually moving forward ultimately over time.
And then go ahead, sorry.
No. And it just takes management commitment, because this is not grassroots efforts. This really needs to come from the top. I know when I worked at DOJ, Joe Klomovitz, his 10 priorities he posted was application rationalization, because he really felt strongly that it would succumb data center optimization and be the next project for the next 10 years. He felt so strongly about that.
But I mean, I think that that is something for folks to understand, right? Is that there may need to be a little bit of a I'm going to use the term sales pitch, right? There needs to be a little bit of a a roadmap and a presentation to leadership, right, to get that executive level support.
Here's the beauty, Chris. Application rationalization can could be leveraged by the existing efforts they're doing today. You're doing this information, you're getting it in some form or fashion. Whether it goes stale or not is another matter, but Zero Trust requires you identify your users and your applications. So you could build off of what agencies are already doing with their Zero Trust in cyber efforts, and use your cyber tools for the operations and portfolio management of your agency, not just for cyber. It shouldn't be a silo of data sitting over in your security office. That data should be leveraged in other parts of the agency.
So what have you seen from best practices for agencies that have done that integration, the not having the silos, not, being able to share?
Yeah, the one agency I referenced earlier is doing phenomenal work, and they're looking like professionals with their business owners and really showing what their actual true cost is, and the communication between IT and the business owners have grown exponentially because they're talking on the same level and able to show in real terms what their platforms are starting to look like. And some of these are run by business owners, right? And they need to understand where they fit in the security picture as well as the IT modernization picture. And it really helps drive the conversation and shows that, maybe I do need to put forth some refresh money, or we retire this thing onto a shared platform. And their arguments start to dwindle quickly.
And then they're able to present that data to everybody, and you have the same view, right?
Right. On the same terms. You're not talking IT speak to a business owner. Right.
And then the business owner sees the cost and understands then as well the IT aspect of it.
It really is the nexus between, so they could talk the same language.
Okay. Well, we're kind of coming up on time. I mean, I think you hit some pretty big.
Hey, big shout out to Bill Alman. He works at the VA. He's getting me a setup. My background is Pittsburgh. He's gonna hook me up, and I'm gonna do a visit out to the VA hospital where they have data centers, but they're needed. 20 years ago, these devices, medical devices, were not software based. Today, it's commonplace, and they actually need to run a data center. So I get to see some justification why those data centers exist and why they will never go away. You certainly don't want latency on a EKG machine.
Right. Absolutely.
The patient doesn't quite understand.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's not right. The 0.9% is not beneficial, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah.
So I guess just to recap, I mean, you've got the big things of the data center sustainability and resiliency. And kind of the tie to energy in the IT modernization world, and you've got a webinar coming up on that. You want to throw out the date of that? For you guys have that now?
We haven't set the date because we haven't identified the availability of our keynotes. We haven't identified the keynotes. It just keeps growing. I tell you, everybody I've been talking to at every level of government has been really interested in this because it has benefits for the agencies, for the federal government, and for industry. This is a win-win-win summit.
Okay.
Where I needed to strong arm some of the people for IPv6 because nobody wants to talk about that, right?
Right, exactly. And then we've got application rationalization. I think we've got a lot to learn from.
And Chris, you need to get Steve Nauman on. He is a terrific speaker, and he can talk in depth about application rationalization, some of the drivers behind it, and what you're going to get out of it. And there
I think we got
agencies that
Steve on. We're definitely going to have to do cloud, coffee, and lunch, because I've spent a lot of time with Steve, and we tend to spend way more than an hour.
Yeah.
And then training. So obviously, sounds like Fred has done yeoman's work of posting everything in the chat, but would definitely love to get Fred on here and talk about kind of the importance and what's going on, and how you guys are tying the technology and getting a lot of cross agency support in getting an understanding of of the evolution of technology and how to keep up with it. So
Yeah.
sounds like you guys got big plans for the year, and really appreciate your time here today, kicking off 2022.
Yeah. Thanks, Claire and Weaver, for joining. Have a great day, and
All
a
right.
happy New Year to everybody.
Tom, you want to hang on? Kirsten, you want to take a quick pick? Everybody, thank you very much. Our next Cloud and Coffee will be in 2 weeks, and looking forward to everybody's attendance.
Thanks, everyone. All right, Chris and Tom, smile for the camera. 3, 2, 1. Great.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks, everyone. Have a happy Thursday. Bye.